all the answers are on the inside, but you're not going to ever find them if you keep stumbling over science and you keep reading and you keep researching.
He made the reverse hyper. That is crazy.
That thing's incredible.
It's incredible. So to get back to Louie, like, what was that experience like? And I want to know more from like the science is potentially there, but what's it really like?
When you would ask Louie about certain people that came through the gym, because he had so many famous and great people that came in, especially people that were highly touted in strength and in fitness. I remember asking him, I really looked up to Charles Poliquin. I loved the information that he had out there, all the stuff he talked about with eccentrics, and he had a huge impact. He was the first guy to really talk a lot about branched chain amino acids, one of the first guys to talk about fish oil. He was like just bringing all kinds of stuff to the forefront that no one else was thinking about, 20, 30 years ago. I said, Louie, how's Charles Poliquin? I know he came out here. And he goes, oh, Charles is a great guy. He goes, he sat right there. And we're in the gym. We're at Westside. I was like, oh, did you learn anything from him? Or like, did he show you guys anything? Or he goes, he sat right there. He just sat right next to that box over there. He sat on that bench. And his point was, he came to the Westside and he didn't fucking lift.
He just wanted to watch?
He just watched.
Yeah.
He's like, this is not a spectator sport. He's like, you got to be involved. You got to actually do it.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes back to the whole thing of like, you got to find the answers. It goes back to what's on my hat, which is my brand within you. All the answers are on the inside, but you're not going to ever find them if you keep stumbling over science and you keep reading and you keep researching. You're not going to find them that way. You're going to find them by, okay, yeah, you're going to read or have an input from somebody. Ideas got to come from somewhere. Your ideas are always going to form out of like conjectures that you make against other maybe previous beliefs that you had, or it's going to come from some sort of piece of new information. But then you have to go and implement it. I mean, how many people are out there right now listening to podcasts, listening to books on tape, listening to all kinds of different information all the time? And it's not lack of information, it's lack of action. People need to actually go and do stuff. Even if you do it kind of blindly and you fuck it all up and mess it all up. If somebody that hurts their back on a deadlift, it's like, I think everybody looks at that as a bad thing, but you start to learn from that.
Yeah.
And then you also learn the art, which is a fucking wonderful art to learn, how to train and still make progress when you're kind of fucked up.
Beyond that, one thing I really, really liked was that he brought dynamic effort to a world where dynamic effort was not even considered. So, like in weightlifting, dynamic effort is what we do every day. So I don't have to fucking worry about it. So just by snatching and just by clean and jerking, I'm essentially doing dynamic effort deadlifts. Like I really am. Like
you can't jump up onto something slowly.
Yeah.
Like you can't really do a clean with X amount of weight slowly.
And,
which won't happen.
The beautiful thing is the percentage, it falls right in line with what Louie wants prescribed. It's just probably not as much volume because the movement is too technical. So like Louie would have these workouts. I mean, I know you would know more about this, but you'd be doing like 12 sets or 20 sets, but it would be at 50 to 65%, and usually 60 seconds to 120 seconds rest. And that was the dynamic effort days. But you were doing smaller ranges of motion than a goddamn snatch. But what I like is like, hey, let's be explosive in here. Let's work on being explosive, even though that's not our sport. That has nothing to do with our sport as being fast.
Right.
But what would happen if we worked fast? And if you are a slow guy who's really strong, we can still work on this thing, and you can still be a slow and strong guy over here, but we'll be able to progress you at the same time. I absolutely love the idea of doing that, and I think, if I'm not wrong here, like this was not a thing in strength training, whether it was for powerlifting specifically, for bodybuilding, or for strongman, for any strength outside of weightlifting. Moving light weights fast when your sport is moving heavy weights pretty slow was not being done before Louie, right?
Well, you did have Dr. Squat who came in and talked a lot about compensatory acceleration, like moving weights fast. And he didn't break it down quite the same way that Louie did. He didn't have the idea of using those lighter weights, because he found that he actually had a statement that if anyone could get stronger with lighter weights, why wouldn't you just always use lighter weights? And so you need the heavier weight as well. So you need both days, and that's why Louie...
The maximum effort.
Louie broke it out. Speed day, and then you're going to have another day that's like slow or heavy as possible. Then it automatically slows you down, basically. But yeah, Dr. Squat, he squatted over 1,000 pounds at like 260. And he was one of the... maybe not the first guy to squat 1,000, but one of the first. And he talked a lot about compensatory acceleration. And his idea is actually really, really nice, and any athlete can implement this. Once you have the form and technique down of any movement in the gym, try to work it explosively. Not necessarily out of control. I think people confuse the two, and they start going like crazy on certain things. But once you get the idea and the concept down of maybe, let's just say, like dumbbell bench pressing or doing some overhead presses, whether you're seated or standing, once you get the motion down, then try to really push into it as hard as you can, because those 80-pound dumbbells, you can have them kind of represent 100-pound dumbbells.
Yes.
Just by
moving fast.
Just by the exertion, right? There's different ways of doing it.
That's a valuable piece of advice, because so much of what bodybuilders or so much of what people do, like the most common cue in the gym is like slow and control the weight. Right. It's like that does have a ton of value, by the way.
That's a great place to start.
Yeah, eccentric loading, like nice and control, make sure all your positions are right. But once you become a little bit more of an advanced lifter, like trying to do things fast is rarely seen. But you do. I mean, I think the most advanced power bodybuilders,
right?
They're going to pick up, 100-pound dumbbells, and they're going to pop them off the chest as fast as they can.
I think it has some merit for some muscle growth as well. But where Louie was really a genius was with innovation. So he took
the shit he made, man.
Oh, it was unbelievable. He made the reverse hyper, and he was really big on the glute ham.
He made the reverse hyper. That is crazy.
That thing's incredible.
It's incredible. And we're talking to an inventor here. So you invented a thing, and now it's a thing that is part of
over 1 million slingshots sold. Yep.
Yeah. But the fact that he was like, I have this vision for, because like the back extension is a fucking staple in Soviet training.
Yeah. Like
it still is today. Like Dmitry Klokov was on a video with what's his name? Bradley Martin. And he was like, I do this 3 times a week. And he was saying it was just back extensions. And he took Bradley Martin through back extensions with weight on the back. And I love the idea, and I know you know more about this, but the fact that we can support the spine and work the other way,
right?
So you get traction and flexion and extension is like that. That's so cool. And it's what's crazy to me is like it seems like such a legitimate instrument that nobody like it's not. It's hard for me to fathom that Louie pretty recently invented that thing. It seems like such a staple,
Yeah, Louie was crazy. He was always trying to invent all kinds of stuff. He invented a bar that had springs in it, and as you go to press it, I think someone else makes it nowadays, but as you go to press the weight, you could contract inward against the springs, and as you go to or you could press outward against some springs to like work the triceps versus working the chest when you're going inward. He made all kinds of stuff.
What weight releasers? Did he start doing that first?
Yeah, I've never seen weight releasers before him, but like he took the bands, he took the chains, the weight releasers. The bands came from a guy named Dick Hartzell who used to own a company. I don't know if they're still around anymore. Jump Stretch, and Louie had this idea of attaching a band to the barbell, which at the time was pretty wild and crazy. No one was really doing anything like that.
No.
It's still not utilized enough. It's insane that it's not utilized more. Bands and chains are absolutely amazing. The weights are lighter at the bottom and heavier at the top. Remember I talked earlier about the art of training around and through injuries. That's a great way to train around injuries.
You get the axial loading of the weight pushing you down really hard, but when it's in the most compromised range of motion, it's as light as it
Absolutely. So take the chains, for example. You have like a 20-pound chain. If it's on the side of a barbell for something like a squat and you have a lot of knee pain, well, at the very bottom of the squat is where the chains are going to completely deload. You should have it set up so that the chains are almost completely deloaded off the bar. So you got this 20-pound chain that, 5 pounds of it, 10 pounds of it, 20 pounds of it down on the ground. And as you go to come back up, more and more that chain piles up. You get a similar reaction to the bands. They're just a little harder sometimes to manipulate so that you're zeroed out at the bottom. And you wouldn't really want that because then the bands would get too slack, then they get too crazy. But for force production and for speed, bands and chains are absolutely amazing. If you're to think about it this way, like if you were to take a wiffle ball, a baseball, and a shot put, which one could you throw the furthest? I mean, there's a lot of reasons physics-wise that I am unaware of, but there's a lot of reasons on why the baseball would be the one that you could throw the furthest. The wiffle ball is too light and the shot put's too heavy. So you need an optimal weight. And when you go to lift, there's a lot of deceleration that actually happens that you don't even think about, but your body is smart. Even if you were to throw a punch, you can throw a punch pretty hard, but you can only throw a punch as hard as your body is willing to decelerate. Otherwise, you're going to throw your shoulder out. And on something like a bench press or something like a squat's a great example because you can really lock your legs out really aggressively and hard and kind of start to end up with some knee pain and almost some hyperextension of the knees. But if you have a band on the bar and you go to lift it as fast as you can, well, now you can have at it. Now you can push into those weights as fast as you want, as fast as you like. So I'd like to see them used even more. I wish that it was something that took off more because I think it has a lot of application.